trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do?
Hello and welcome to the Goldberry Artisans podcast. This is a podcast all about knitting and every once in a while other crafts, and about learning as you go and being okay with making mistakes. My name is Emily and I'm a college student coming to you from the beautiful state of Maine. Today I chose a spot where hopefully you can see a bit of our fall leaves. A lot of them have come down in the rain that we've had recently, but there's still some beautiful leaves out. Fall is my favorite season, so I'm very excited about it. So it's been just about a month since I last published a podcast. Today is October 15th. We'll see how long it takes me to get this up. But yeah, it's been busy. I don't like to use that word a lot to describe life. In general, I try not to overwhelm myself with busyness, but I'm working and going to school, so that is just, it's going to be busy. I have managed to get quite a bit of knitting done, mostly easy knitting, a lot of stockinette stitch or simple projects that I can work on while I am reading. So thank you to my middle school self for perfecting that skill, because it definitely helps the homework to go by faster. And I even have one class that I am able to knit during the class. I have not yet asked the professor if I can knit, but I've gotten good grades so far, and I always participate in discussions and answering questions, and the classroom is like a theater style, like an amphitheater, and so she can't see my hands, so I knit. It's an evening class. I have to be in there for 2.5 hours. Knitting keeps me there. There are some nights when I would leave, if I could. So yeah, that's just some general life stuff, and I cut my hair yesterday. I was finally tired of my long hair, so I cut it all off. I typically will, every 1.5 to 2 years, like I'll just grow my hair out and then I cut it. A lot of people cut their hair for summer, but I don't like my hair to be super short for the summer, because then I cannot put it up very easily. I like to have short hair in the wintertime, because then it's way easier. I can just throw a hat on and I don't have to worry about doing anything with my hair. It's great. So yeah, that's what I've been up to lately. School and work and easy knitting. So let's jump right in with finished subjects. First up, I haven't really been in a sock mood for like most of the year. I've been way more about shawls this year. So socks have been taking me forever to complete a pair, because they're just basically my portable project, like my knit during class or knit in those 15-minute car rides. If somebody else is driving, I'll knit for 15 minutes in the car or whatever. So it takes me a while to finish a pair. But I did finally finish these socks. These are my summer twilight socks. The pattern is the Rose City Rollers, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry, and the yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners 4-ply. And I had used this yarn for another pair of socks that had maybe like 4 to 5 inch legs, and I still had quite a bit left over, and so I wanted to use that yarn for something, and so, because I had like 45 grams left or something, so I knit a pair of shorty socks. I haven't yet decided if these are going to be for me or if they're going to be a gift. I never plan Christmas knitting. I'm always like, oh no, I won't do that, and then it's like December 15th maybe, and I'm like, oh no, I should knit some things for some people. And then I go to the store and buy some bulky yarn and knit a bunch of hats. So I like to have some things like this stockpiled that would be good gifts if I know somebody who's knit worthy. I have one friend who I gave a pair of socks to last year, and a couple weeks ago, once it finally had cooled down enough to wear socks, she texted me, she's like, I'm wearing the socks that you made me today, and I wish I had enough pairs to wear all the time. So she'll probably be getting another pair of socks this winter. This one or another one, I'm not sure. Yep, those are done. Just simple, super easy stockinette stitch, rolled cuff, and then I did a heel flap and gusset. And I did a 3-needle bind off on the toes, which is not something that I've ever done before on socks. But I was knitting these during class and I didn't have a needle or anything with me, and I just wanted to bind them off, and so I decided, I'd heard that some people do a 3-needle bind off, so I tried it. This part looks fine. The back, it's a little bumpy. Like it's got that purl ridge. I don't really know how to do 3-needle bind off. I just kind of make it up. So I don't know if that's normal, but that's what it looks like. See the inside. The inside looks like this. So I don't know if maybe that is supposed to be on the outside, but then I'd have to like flip my knitting inside out. So I don't really know. If you are somebody who does 3-needle bind off on socks, I'd love to know how you do it. Because it was super easy. I mean, I don't mind Kitchener stitch, but for an on-the-go project, it's nice to be able to bind it off on the go. So yeah, if you do 3-needle bind off on socks, I'd love to know how you do it. My other finished object is a shawl. This is the Spindrift shawl by Helen Stewart, and I'm calling it just my favorite color is October shawl because the yarn colorway is my favorite color is October, and it is from the Woolen Homestead. I gushed and gushed about this yarn in my last podcast episode, and I blocked it, wove in the ends, and I just love how it looks. I actually wore it a couple of times before I had blocked it or woven in ends or anything. Ends were hanging out all over the place, and I wore it anyway. And I blocked it. I've been doing like the Pomodoro technique for homework, where you like sit down and just do work for 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break. I talked about it last time, and so I've been doing a lot of like blocking and weaving in ends in those 5-minute periods to give myself a mental break. And so that's how this got blocked. I just sort of had my blocking mats out on my floor for like a month because I had a whole bunch of shawls that I knit over the summer that I never blocked, and I just like cycle through one, would block for a day or two, and then I'd take it off and block another one. And the blocking definitely made this shawl bigger. Not like massively, like not a big change, but enough so that it does have a little bit more. The ends come around my neck a little bit more, which I like. As you can see, I like how they curl a bit. Like they don't just hang there, they're curly and they're wavy. Because this is, I don't know what the technical name for it, but to me it looks like it's like a crescent shape, because when you hold it out, the ends curve in naturally to make a nice crescent shape. Let's see if I can show you. Like it curls up like this, which I like because I do tend to wear shawls like a scarf, and so having a longer shawl with thinner ends is nice sometimes when I want a smaller shawl. I love to have big cozy shawls around my neck as well, but sometimes when it's warmer, it's nice to have a lighter weight shawl. I do have another shawl that's this shape that I knit, and I enjoy wearing that. like a scarf as well. So that's why I knew I would like this pattern. Oh my goodness, and Tiffany just came out from the Woolen Homestead, came out with a new colorway called Earl Grey, which is like a gray base with some yellows and purples, and I want it. But next time, I'm thinking, next time I buy yarn from her, I might do like a brioche, because then I could find a solid color yarn to pair it with, and then I could have a bigger shawl that would still show off a hand-dyed yarn. I don't know, haven't decided yet, but Tiffany, I love that colorway. I already told you, but I love it. I'm in love with this. And the blocking definitely did help to open up the lace section. It feels like I finished this forever ago, so I don't really have anything much to say about it. I talked about it a lot in my last episode, so. Those are my 2 finished objects, and then I have 3 projects still on my needles. The first is a pair of socks. The other 2 are some slightly larger long-term projects. I am knitting I'm calling these my Fairyland Below socks. I've recently been reading the series The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, and it's a series of 5 books. I've read the first 2 so far, and the second one talked about Fairyland Below, which is a land full of shadows. So I thought this blue yarn, in my head, the shadows were like blue and green. And the pattern is the Grand Central Socks by Mina Phillip. It's part of her New York Sock Club collection. And the blue color is this Barocco Socks yarn. The colorway, it doesn't have a name, but the colorway is 1453. And I had used this yarn for another pair of socks that had a slip stitch pattern, so you use 2 colors of yarn, and it had a slip stitch pattern, and so it did not use very much of this yarn. So I've got plenty left for another pair of socks. And the white is just some leftover Cascade Heritage solids, just a white, slightly cream colorway. And I have just barely started the second sock, like just barely. I started in class last week. I finished this one and started this one. Finished this one, started this one. And I'm knitting these toe up. I've knit a couple pairs of socks toe up, and I do enjoy the process. I'm still a little bit unsure, because I tend to be a heel flap and gusset girl when I knit socks. I like my heel flap, I like how it fits, I feel like it gives the sock a lot more structure. But I haven't knit many toe-up socks, and I haven't knit many socks that did not have a heel flap and gusset. And most of the ones that I've done with like a short row heel were just vanilla socks. So there wasn't a whole lot of structure to them, and so they tend to be slouchier. I still wear them all the time, and I love them because they are so simple, but they do tend to slouch a bit more, which may just be I need to do more ribbing on my socks. Maybe that's all I need to do. But for these, I did the German short row heel that Mina included instructions for, and I did the wedge toe. So I haven't actually tried these on, so I'm excited to see how that fits. I like how it looks, so we'll see how it fits. A wedge toe as opposed to a normal round toe. A typical sock toe has, depending on whether you're knitting it cuff down or toe up, has the increase or decrease every other round. But in the wedge toe, there's a whole ton. You do, like, depending on what your final stitch count will be, several rows, like 7, 8, 9, or something like that, rows, or rounds rather, of increases every single round, and then start to slowly stagger them out. So it makes it, again, more of a wedge toe instead of, like this would be a round toe. So it's more narrow, and then this is a wedge toe, which you'd think like a round toe you'd think would be more round, but really in my mind, this looks more like a rounded semicircle than this does. But, so that's the wedge toe. We'll see how I like it. And then I did a bit longer ribbing than I typically do. And I did Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, just to make sure that it fits, whether I keep these or give them away. And I love this stitch pattern. I like her New York Sock Club collections because all of them have really simple stitch patterns. Like, they're still at texture, which keeps my interest, and I like how it looks, but they're simple enough that that it's still mindless knitting, which is what I tend to use socks for. They're my mindless knitting. And I did just do plain stockinette stitch on the back of the leg. In the pattern you can do either way, have the stitch pattern go all the way around, or just on the front. So yeah, those are the Grand Central socks. If you've been watching for a while, you may remember that I was working on another pair of Grand Central socks this spring, but then had a fiasco with some of our cats deciding that the basket thing that I had my knitting in was a litter box. So I had some issues. I managed to wash out the project bag and that smells fine now, but it was not worth it to me. The yarn, it had been given to me, but it was just like some Barocco socks or something, and I wasn't really liking how the colorway anyway. So I just threw away the yarn. I was like halfway through the first one, not really enjoying it at all. But I've been really enjoying this. I think because my problem with the other one was I didn't really like the colorway. So yeah, try number 2 of the Grand Central socks. They're living in my Ravelry sheep project bag. I really like this bag because it's a nice heavy canvas, so it's super sturdy. I can throw it in my backpack and know it will be fine. And I like it because it will just sit. I can have it sitting next to me and I don't have to worry about it falling over, which is super handy. Oh, I technically have 4 projects on the needles. But one of them is a test knit for Lily of Nordic Stitches. And right now Lily is participating in Vlogtober, where she posts like a vlog every single day for October, which I've really been enjoying watching those. So if you are looking for more knitting related YouTube things to watch, I suggest you go check out Lily. She's so funny. I just love listening to her. It's great. And plus she lives in Norway, so it's super cool to see things. She takes lots of nature shots. She goes on hikes and will take videos and record outside, which is really cool. And she hasn't recorded a normal podcast episode in a while because her computer has been having issues, but hopefully that will be resolved and she'll be back to longer podcasts soon. So I can't really show you the whole knit, but I will talk about the yarn that I'm using. The yarn it was a gift. It is hand spun from hand dyed fiber, which is like my favorite. It's this absolutely stunning purple color. And it is from Alexander's Craft hand dyed fibers. The colorway is the wine colorway. It is 50% merino, 25% bamboo, 25% silk, which just makes it so incredibly soft. So soft, but still sturdy. It's not superwash soft. It's not slick. It's soft. There is a difference. And there's about 400 to 410 yards. It's a 2-ply, and I just love it. And there's a part of the pattern where I could use a second color, and I'm not to the part where I need to introduce it yet. Haven't fully decided. But if I was going to use a second color, it would be this yarn, which I used in my Each Good Day shawl, which is the Gray Skies shawl by Naomi of Sew Knit C. Naomi, I'm sorry Naomi, I always forget what your design name is. I'll put it on the screen. And this was also some hand spun, same gift from the same amazing knitter and spinner. So I haven't totally decided, but if I did use a second color, this is what I would use. So it is a mindless knit, which is perfect, but and you know, I keep making sure, looking at the pattern, making sure I have correct stitch counts and everything. But it is something that I can knit on. I've been working on it in class a bit, which is always good. Next up, I will talk about my Cozy Memories blanket, which is living. I had a lot of it in a shoebox. I just sort of had my scraps in a shoebox, and then the blanket got too big for that. So I moved it over to my gorgeous trundle bag. This is from Matter Maid, who is she lives in Maine, which is so cool. She makes knitting project bags, and this is huge, and I love it. I like that it's got a nice roomy pocket inside. What I've been doing a lot is walking around with it. Like a couple weekends ago, I had a bad cold, and I felt better when I was like walking around, especially outside. So I was like doing laps around my yard, and I had this on my arm, and I was just walking. And the top folds down, so I can see my minis, see my blanket, see what's inside a little bit better. Yeah, it's basically like the perfect bag, and I love it. So this project has been getting a lot of love recently because it's just so easy to work on when I'm doing homework. I just have it sitting beside my desk almost all the time so that I can just pull it out and work on it. And it's funny because lately sometimes I'll be like, oh, well, maybe I should work on something that's, you know, gonna be done sooner, or work on this other project so I can have it for this time. Then I stop myself. I knit for fun. The word should, I don't want to use that in relation to my knitting, which is part of why I don't stress out about the Christmas knitting thing, because I don't like knitting deadlines necessarily. Now, like a test knit, like sure, I'll have a deadline for a test knit because I can choose to do that. I don't know, it's weird. I have this funky relationship with deadlines. On the one hand, I love them, and on the other hand, I hate them. But I feel like sometimes as knitters, we put ourselves in like, oh, well, I should work on this because I need to do it for this person, or I should work on this, or let it go. If you knit for fun, you can do whatever you want. Like, you knit whatever you want, you do you. Don't worry about whether everybody else is knitting this project, whether everyone else has finished their project already. Do whatever you want. Knit what makes you happy. So, as you can see, as I'm about to show you, obviously this project has been making me very happy to work on because I put a lot of love into it in a month. So a little over a month ago, I had recorded my last podcast episode, and I just started this blanket. And I had 7 squares completed. I still have my little progress keeper on there to show how far I'd gotten. And I don't even know how many squares. 10 by, I've made 48, I'm on my 49. Yes. And I'm not going to go through and talk about all of these. What I will do, sometime soon, I will take a picture of it and put it up on Instagram and tag some of the yarn companies and indie dyers that are in here. Not all of them are on Instagram, and some of them are unknown, but if you have questions, if you want to know what the yarn is, you can just comment on that photo or comment on this video on YouTube and just be like, oh hey, what was that green self-striping yarn with the speckles? And then I'll try to figure out what one you were talking about, and I'll let you know. But I'm not going to go into each and every single one of them, but I love this. And it's still small enough that it's actually a portable project. Last weekend, my sister was home from school, and we did a movie night at a friend's house, a whole bunch of us, because there's a few college students who were home for the long weekend. In my head, it's the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, but in the US, it's Columbus Day. And I brought this to their house, and I just worked on it. I love it. But I just wanted to show this is my favorite color is October, which I just showed you guys. I have yarn from the West Yorkshire Spinners that is in my Rose City Roller socks, And I have received some beautiful minis from some very sweet knitting friends, and I'm arranging swaps with a couple more, which is so fun. I love knitting. I love looking at it and being like, oh yeah, I remember I knit. I had a friend who got married last year, and at her bridal shower I gave her a pair of socks knit from this yarn. Or, oh, this person gave me this yarn. It's just so much fun to look on. So there's a reason it's called the Cozy Memories blanket. And the pattern recipe that I'm following is The Coziest Memory by Kemper Ray. It's free on Ravelry. So basically I pick up 23 stitches, pick up along this side, pick up another 23 down here, and then I knit the mitered square, which basically means you're decreasing 2 stitches every other row. So then you get down to 1 stitch, pull the yarn through. And something I've been doing is weaving in my ends as I go. So what I do, now normally I do not knot threads, I weave them in. But what I've been doing is I will knot the threads together. So like after I picked up stitches for this square, I knotted the end together with this end from this silver square, and then when I'm knitting, I'll carry the ends over. So I'll basically, it's like catching a float for color work. I will put the yarn ends over my working yarn, knit the stitch, put the yarn ends over the working yarn, knit the stitch. And then I'll just do that for like 5 or 6 stitches just to kind of get it tucked in, so it's not going to be popping out. But that's what I'm doing, because if I had to actually use a yarn needle and weave in every single one of these ends, I would never do it. So I've just been doing that as I go, but that means because I'm not like using a needle and weaving them in, I'm basically carrying them over. I'm not really weaving them in. My standard for what I do when I weave in ends, let me see if I can get my sock out here and show you. I will take the yarn and go typically in a diagonal direction. Can't really see it on here. Oh, here we go. I'll go diagonally through the back of the stitches, and then I'll go back, but I will split threads. Like I will take the needle and I will split through the thread of the yarn that I'm weaving in, the end that I'm weaving in, and sometimes I'll also split like the fabric. Like I'll split the threads that it's weaving through, if that makes sense. Just to make it super secure, so then it will stay there. It's not going to move around, but I didn't have to tie a knot. So that's how I usually weave in ends, but I don't usually weave in ends until I'm done blocking a project, to make sure that I'll either do it just before or after blocking, depending on, I don't know, what I feel like doing. But that way I can make sure that the project is how I want it, because if I'm going to end up ripping it out or ripping out a section, I don't want to have to unpick those ends. So with this, there have been a few times when I have ripped squares back, ripped them out if I didn't have enough yarn or didn't like the yarn it was next to, like if it just really clashed or something. But it was super easy. It was easy to undo the knot because I just did a standard knot. So that's what I'm doing for this. I'm weaving in as I go. And last time I had talked about how I was planning on making some squares bigger, like the size of 4 squares. And I did start out doing that. I actually had this yarn. I had like done this section. I had picked up 46 stitches here and 46 here, and it was going to be in this 4 square block. I finished that, realized, holy moly, that takes a lot of yarn. That's okay, I have some ends from socks. I tend to have like 20 to 30 grams left over after I knit socks, like that'll be fine. But then I got over here, and I wanted to use my favorite color is October yarn, and I wanted it in relation to some of these yarns, because I felt like it pulled in the orange from here, and the brown from here, maroon from here. And so I did the same thing. I picked up 46 on both sides for a total of 92. And I started knitting, and I was halfway through, and I realized I wasn't going to have enough yarn, and that was one of my biggest scraps. So I realized that I didn't really want to do the big squares because I didn't have enough yarn scraps that were big enough to do that, and I didn't want that to slow me down, being like, oh well, I gotta wait till I have a scrap big enough to do a big square to make it like have them evenly spaced. And I have not yet taken a mini from like a full skein of yarn, but if I did, I would only want it to be a small amount, because if I'm going to knit, if I had taken like 20 to 30 grams of this yarn out before knitting the shawl, I would not have had enough to finish it. So for a lot of these gorgeous hand-dyed yarns, I don't want to take out that much yarn, because then I won't have enough to complete the project that I want to make with the yarn. So yeah, I decided not to do the big squares, to just stick with the smaller squares. And I know some people have theirs pointing different directions, or do a double decrease, so you end up with a stockinette stitch in like the V in the middle instead of the garter stitch. But I just followed Kemper Ray's instructions, and I like it. And it's so much fun to get to play with different yarns and different bases that I never would have ever tried before. Like this is some hedgehog fibers. This was a gift, and like a mini gift, and so I've been able to try it out, see what it feels like. This is some Malabrigo Allegria yarn, not Malabrigo, Manos del Uruguay, Allegria, I don't know how to say it, yarn it's super soft. I don't know if I'd make a pair of socks out of it, but now I know what it feels like and a little bit of how it works up. So it's just really cool to work with some different yarns. And I kind of almost don't count this as a work in progress, because it's basically going to be on my needles for a really long time. Because I haven't really decided how big I want it yet. Right now, it is 10 squares across. So it's like not big enough for a bed or anything. But I'm thinking I'll knit it to like a nice throw blanket size, see how I like it, because it would be so easy to go back in and add squares onto the edges. Like, it's just so easy to do that. And yeah, so that's kind of what I love about this project, is that there's no like, oh, I want to get this done so I can wear it this winter, or trying to knit it to exact size, or measuring. It's just sort of a free-flowing, do whatever you want project, which is definitely what I need in my life right now. The last project I'm working on is one that I was just swatching for last time. And that is the Telja sweater by Jennifer Steingrass. It was published in By Hand Serial issue number 2, but you can buy the pattern individually on Ravelry. And I'm calling this my Autumn Frost sweater. Just because, like, when I wake up on a frosty morning, which we've had a couple so far this fall, not too many, and you just see the green grass all covered in frost, and you get the silver and the dark purple leaves. I love fall, love autumn. So I have knit the sleeves, and on one of them I did run into some issues on the first one with the increases. I didn't do a great job of making sure I had the right stitch counts all the way along. And I got like halfway through the increases and went to count, and on one side I had the correct number, on the other side I was missing like 6 stitches. So I basically hadn't done any of the increases on that side of the sleeve. And I think it's because of the type of increase that it is. It's not a typical make one increase where you pick up, like where you'd pick up the strand from in between the stitches. Like in a make one increase, you would pick up this little piece right here. But in this, she calls for an invisible decrease, or not decrease, invisible increase. And it's different for right leaning and left leaning. And so in one of them, you pick up this part. So from the actual stitch below, you would pick up this piece and then slip this stitch. And then on the opposite side, you would slip the stitch and then pick up that leg. So I think what was happening was that because I'm using Plotulopi for this, which is unspun Icelandic wool, which I've really been enjoying working on, but it's definitely fuzzy and it's a little bit harder to see the stitches. And I think what was happening was I would do the increase, but then the next time around I wouldn't really be paying attention, and I would just knit the increase and the stitch that it was increased off of together. So basically not having an increase. But for whatever reason, the stitches on the second increase of the sleeve, which I think was the left leaning, just because of the way that you did it, it was easier to see. So that one I was getting, but not the first one. So I made extra sure on the second one to make sure that I was getting those increases. I did not rip it out. I'm going to talk about, at a future date, I'm going to talk about the whole, like, my thoughts on ripping out and my journey towards being okay with it a little bit. But I was not about to try to pull out this unspun Icelandic wool because it's unspun. It is super grippy, which means it's great if I accidentally drop a couple stitches, like they fall off the needles, they don't move at all. But I did not want to try to rip it out, so I didn't. So the sleeve increases in this one are a little wonky, like it gets suddenly big. You can see, like, right here where I had to, like, do the increases instead of, like, every, however many, I don't even know, like 8 rounds or whatever. I would do it halfway just to make up for it, make up for the missed ones. And this one is much more uniform. But they're sleeves, they're tight-fitting sleeves anyway, so it's not really going to be an issue. But one thing I did do was have a progress keeper every time I did an increase, like, because it's just that much harder to read your stitches because it's so fuzzy. And so I would have a progress keeper, and then it was really easy to count how many rows it had been since I'd done the increase, especially since they were invisible increases. I didn't want to try to find them. Even out here, if you can even see, make sure I have the right spot. Right there, that stitch gets turned into 2. So they are fairly invisible. So I definitely recommend using a progress keeper to help you keep track of where you did your increases. And this one, speaking of, I was talking about Lily from Nordic Stitches earlier. This one is from her. She has an Etsy shop. I haven't checked lately to see if she has any in there, but she does have an Etsy shop where she sells progress keepers. Cute little mittens, so cute. So those are the sleeves. It's nice because it gives me a chance to do something a little bit more complicated, get some color work in there, because typically in the fall I gravitate towards either color work or super textured knits, but neither of those are very mindless. So I get to do a little bit of that, and then get to do even a little bit more when I started the body of the sweater. So I have just started. There's a few waist decrease rounds, and then it will start with the bust increases. So just started the waist decreases. It's a little bunched up on the cable, but I love it. Another progress keeper from Nordic Stitches. And yeah, I must say the color work on the sleeves was a bit of a pain, because I was knitting the sleeves in Magic Loop. Just because I thought about doing double points, but then I'd have to switch to Magic Loop once I got more stitches anyway, so I just started out Magic Loop. That way I was using exactly the same needles as I'll be using for the rest of the sweater. And it was a bit of a pain, because the Plotulopi is super easy to break. I've gotten into a rhythm now where it doesn't happen very often, but it did happen more on the sleeves than on the main body. Because with the sleeves, you have to pull the yarn tightly to make sure that you're not going to end up with a line where it was in between the needles. But it's very hard to pull it tightly enough so that you don't end up with a line, but loosely enough so you don't break the Plotulopi. After a while I got into it, but the color work was hard, because I find color work on Magic Loop tricky because suddenly having even floats can be hard enough sometimes. Especially even floats over Magic Loop because, again, you're crossing those needles. I find it a little bit easier on double points for whatever reason. Probably because Magic Loop, like, it's flat like this. You go this way and then back. But on double points, it's already opened up, I guess. Like, it's more in a circular form, so making sure the floats are not too tight is easier, for me at least. I learned how to knit in the round on DPNs, not in Magic Loop, so maybe that's why. But it was a little tricky to pull the different strands of yarn around the needle in that gap and make sure I had an even tension. So that was a bit of an issue, but that's really the only issue I've had with the Floaty Lopey. It does break easily, but it's super easy to spit splice or just dip it in a glass of water and join it back together. It's not a problem. And it's been happening far less frequently on this. It's only happened to me like maybe twice, whereas on the sleeves it was happening to me like every, I don't know, maybe every 10 to 15, maybe like every 10 rounds I would have one where the yarn would break on me. But way easier on the body. And yeah, now I'm just going around stockinette stitch. I found time Friday to sit down and work on the color work, so then I could really get cranky on the body. So I've done all of this between like Friday and Saturday. So super fast, because it is like worsted to an Aran weight yarn, so it works up quickly. But I'm thinking my next sweater, I want to make a fingering weight sweater. Although I do have two sweaters quantities. Well, like one sweater's quantity and then another one that would be enough for a sweater if I did a color work yoke of worsted weight. But I do want to make more fingering weight sweaters in the future, because I found in these transitional autumn months where it'll be cooler during like the morning and the evening, but not so much the middle of the day, I want to wear a sweater, and so I'll either wear my one fingering weight pullover that I have or a store-bought sweater, because those are just a bit lighter. And I can't wear my worsted weight sweaters unless it is really cold or just, winter. So I think in the future I'm going to be looking to be making more fingering weight sweaters versus worsted weight. But yeah, that is all that I have for knitting. And I've been rambling on for a while, so I'll wrap it up with my segment, What's Making Me Happy Lately. And one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, is knitting in class, because that's probably the class that I personally find the least engaging and the least interesting. So knitting during class definitely helps me to keep my mind on the task and not leave the class when we go on our halfway through break. And I don't leave class. Like, I would never just get up and leave class, but this one, it's close. Close some days. And something else is the new issue of Making Magazine. I just got this in the mail this weekend, and it's gorgeous, as always. Some of my favorite knitwear items in here. I'll show you if I can find them. Alright, I love, this is called the Autumn's Siren Shawl. It's by Beatrice Perrin-Dolan. And it's just got this squishy garter stitch and these cables, but they're not like super tight cables. I just love them. That's beautiful. And then this is the Reina Shawl by Andrea Mowry. And it looks like it's got some brioche, some two-color brioche and some garter stitch on, which is amazing. And it's a nice big roomy shawl, which I like to have both large shawls and small ones, because I just want all the hand knits. This project, as soon as I saw this, like, I'm making this winter. This is the Cabled Lines hat by Leela Rab. Sorry, I don't know how to say the last name. But look at this hat. And there's a children's version, which I saw first. It's earlier in the magazine. And I was like, I'm totally sizing that up for an adult. And guess what? There's an adult version. I just absolutely love this. I have a store-bought sweater that has this texture on it, and I absolutely love it. So this hat will definitely be on my needles. I don't know what weight of yarn it takes. Let me see. So yeah, she has baby, toddler, child, and adult sizes. Alright, it's worsted weight yarn. No, the baby she has in worsted weight, the toddler in sport, the child again in worsted weight, and the adult in worsted weight. So, oh yeah, the child's version. So cute. I love this hat. So yeah, and as always, there's all sorts of other beautiful projects in here. Some sewing. Yeah. I've gushed about all the other making magazines that I have received, and this one's no different. And you guys hear that Making and Woolful, the Woolful podcast, are going to be teaming up. I don't know all the details, but you can go on either the Making magazine or the Woolful Instagrams and scroll through and find their post where they talk about it. That's exciting because those are like, Making and Woolful are two of my favorite forms of knitting, media, knitting, whatever you want to call it, and I'm so excited that they're teaming up. Just a couple more things. One is English breakfast tea. I love Earl Grey. Big drinking Earl Grey. I love it with a little bit of milk, a little bit of sugar. Perfect. But lately I just picked up a box of English breakfast tea at the store just to try it. I tried it like once before a long time ago. And that's what I've been drinking in the mornings now because it's just that much stronger and I just love it. It's delicious. I just love my black teas. I love black tea. It's like my favorite. I could drink it all the time. And lastly is some of the books that I've been reading for fun lately. I don't have lots of time to read for fun, but it's interesting that we say we don't have time to read, but then you find a book that you really, really love, and you find time to read it. Like, you fitted it everywhere. So, yeah. Lately, I've been reading some more, like, fantasy books lately, just because I really enjoy that. It's a genre that I had not read a whole lot of, like, before the past couple years. But I think what I like is that it's very escapist. Like, I have to read so much for school that when I sit down to read for fun, I don't want to read nonfiction. I don't want to read something that sounds like my life or even like normal real life. I want something that will take me away, like take me out and take me on a journey. So I mentioned this earlier with my socks. I read The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, and the second book is The Girl Who Fell Beneath Fairyland. They're by Catherine Valenti. Oh, sorry, I don't know how to say her last name either. And I have purchased, the first two I read them from the library, but then I have purchased them, and I've also purchased the third one. And I'm looking to buy the other ones, the last two, but I want to get the hardcover to complete the set. So I'm kind of waiting on those because the first three I could find them cheaper because they were older. And the other book I've been loving is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. Oh my goodness, that book. I had that one in Kindle, and I'd also purchased the Audible narration because it's usually if you buy the Kindle book, you can often get the Audible narration for less. And I think both versions were on sale, so I bought it. I kept switching back and forth. Like, I would read it, and then I'd go ride in the car and listen to it, and then so good. But I'm not going to even try to describe them. They're both have a lot of fairy tale elements to them, some strong female characters, some unexpected twists, exploring emotions, and they're both like middle grade young adults, so it's a lot about like growing up, which I still feel sometimes like I'm like 13, so that's perfect. So yeah, those are some books that I have really been enjoying lately. So that is all for now. See how long it takes me to go from recording to uploading, editing and uploading. But it was so lovely to be able to sit down and talk with you all again. And I hope that until I see you next time, that you are having a lot of fun creating, making some time to create and do what you love, even when you're busy. And that you are learning from your mistakes. Bye.
I've of green, red roses too. I see them bloom